Wait a second. Not really.
I got a sign saying that it was live in YouTube.
I try to do it first time, so it can be a little weird. We are live right now, but something is not good. I am working on it.
Okay, no worries. I'm gonna look in YouTube.
I don't know why. Sometimes they see you, and sometimes they see only me. So I don't know what's happened. Okay, right now everything is good. Welcome everybody. Sorry for a little misunderstanding and a little trouble.
Hello. Is it are we now live?
I think so, but
because I don't see it here in the channel.
Everything is on channel, but it's a little delay before this what we spoke here and this what is on my YouTube channel. I don't know why, but I hope everybody see what's going on.
Okay.
So welcome everybody on my YouTube channel. My first guest is Lolo Gonzalez from Red Mojo Games. And we will talk about Tindaya, their first game, which one campaign was end few days ago. So my first question, are you happy because of this campaign?
Hello everybody. It's nice to be chatting with you because we have been communicating for many months via email and you reviewed the game. And now that the campaign is over and I have some free time, it is also very nice to chat with you. We are very happy with the campaign. As you know, this is our first game. So it's a first game of a new publishing company, and having been so well received the game, we are really happy because we did not expect to be doing that great. So we thank everybody for backing the project and supporting this game, which, as you know, is not the typical Euro game. So
yeah, correct. It's a lot of different mechanics, and yeah, it's Euro game, but with a not really, not exactly.
Yes. Sometimes when people ask me, how do you classify the game? It is very difficult. I always say it's a Euro game, but with a twist. It's a different sort of Euro game. So, so that's what makes it even better. The fact that everybody has supported this thing, because in a way, what they are saying is that we are ready to see other sort of Euro games and other sort of themes in board gaming. So we are really happy.
Okay, so how you got the idea of this game? What was your inspiration?
Well, I have like a 3 or 4 things, but I think when I was trying to design the game, the first thing I wanted to do is to uh, analyze a little bit what I did not like about Eurogames. So I started reflecting about things which I did not like, and one of the things was obviously the theme. Most Eurogames have a very nice mechanic, but the themes are very light. Like, you know, it's just a drawing on the board, but nothing else. And I wanted a Euro game where the theme had a very strong presence. So that was one of my first things. I want a game that will have that strong presence. Another thing I don't usually like about Euro games is that you work on your own little board and you do your own economics on your board, and there is very little interaction with other players. And again, that was something I wanted to try to manage. You know, develop a game where you would have to be communicating with other players and working not on your board but on the main board. Another thing I wanted to do was try to design a game where the strategy, you couldn't set up a strategy right at the beginning, but you had to adjust as the game was progressing. That's also something that it generally annoys me with Euro games. It's like you start the game, you set up your strategy at the beginning, and you don't change a thing until the end. And I wanted that not to be the case. I wanted the player to be constantly rethinking his strategy and adjusting. And with those things in mind, I started thinking, you know, how could I achieve that kind of interaction and that kind of constant change on the board? And I thought, okay, what if the board changes as the game progresses? You know, if I change the board, then that would force me to adjust my strategy. And because I wanted the game to be theme driven, I thought, okay, what in nature would have such an impact in a board? And I thought about, okay, you know, the natural conditions, you have volcanoes, you have tsunamis, all of that is going to definitely have an impact on the land. And if I am able to put that into the game, it will definitely help shift the game and the main board, and therefore force the player to rethink their strategy constantly. And obviously, when I started thinking about that, I come from the Canary Islands. I come from these islands in the game. Although I have lived most of my life away from the islands. So I thought, okay, you know, why don't I visit the Canary Islands and learn a little bit about it, because I left the islands when I was just 15 years old. So I really had very little knowledge on their history and stuff like that. So that was it. I went over there, spent about 3 or 4 weeks doing research in the museums and history, and learned a lot about the myths. And when I made that choice, the game grew by itself. It's like I let the theme drive the development of the game. And I think that was really a blessing, because I don't have that much imagination. But, you know, once you let the theme help you build the game, then it's really incredible. So everything that you see on the game is based on some sort of a real event, or if we talk about the gods and their myths and the catastrophes they sent, they are based on beliefs from the folk of the islands. And obviously the conquest also took place, so it is rooted there on the game as history. So I guess to your question, the short answer was I was trying to fight the general Eurogame conventions, and I just suddenly jumped in my islands and decided to develop a game about my islands. So
yeah, you talk a lot of mechanics in this game, because we have a lot of different things on which one we have focus in this game. And tell me, how do you think about that? What was your inspiration to make this mechanics? For example, wasting food. Put the prisoner to volcano. That was amazing things.
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to say. You know, once you let the theme drive the mechanics, lots of things happen, because in this culture, they actually they did human sacrifices in the volcanoes to appease the gods. I mean, bear in mind that these guys were almost prehistoric. So when they didn't know what a volcanic eruption was or why there was a volcanic eruption, they initially thought, okay, this has to do with the anger of the gods. So let's do sacrifices. Let's throw people in the volcano. So that's kind of the thing. For example, the prison, capturing the conquistadors was not true. That I made up because they actually try to kill as many conquistadors as possible. But I thought, rather than killing them, let's just make use for them. Let's just put them in prison so that you can throw them in the volcano. So that would make more sense on today's environment and beliefs and so on and so on. So that's kind of there. Also, when I was in the Canary Islands, I learned that the Aboriginal people on the 15th century, there was lots of different animals and wildlife that, unfortunately, because they didn't know any better, they wiped them out completely to feed themselves. And so I thought, I think I want to introduce this element here so that people are aware that if you overconsume resources, the resources will go and will no longer be available through the game. We did that with forests and with minerals and with clay, as you well know. All these resources, natural resources, if you overexploit those resources, they are bound to disappear. So that was, again, I would say theme-driven rather than intentionally designed like that from the beginning. So yeah, that would be kind of my answer.
Yeah, because this is a lot of, like you say, this is not normal Euro game. We have a lot of things which one we can't find in another games. So this is, I don't know how you think about that. Like I said, wasting food is. I saw it first time in a game. Normally in Euro games we can get a lot of resources and then we can do whatever we want with them. But here, not. We have to think about that. We have to get that much resources how we need to spend, and we can't keep them for next round. So this is amazing idea. But how you think about that?
Well. Basically, when you try to develop the game, this game has actually taken me 3 years to develop. 3 full years, like 24 hours a day for 3 years. So it's during that long period of time, you come up with very wild ideas, like you were suggesting, and also when you start testing the game. You see all these strange behaviors. For example, as you were saying, the Eurogamer usually kind of collects stuff, have the biggest pile of gold or the biggest pile of wood or whatever. And in here, when I started showing the game in fairs, I would see people just grabbing on the first round all the raw materials. And I would say, this is not fun if you take everything like on the first minute of the game. So we changed a couple of things as the game progressed because we kept on seeing things through the testing that were very much Euro gamers, and we wanted to avoid that from taking place. So that's how we came up with many of the mechanics. And also this thing of converting resources and from milk to cheese, or from all of this also comes from this idea of how did these villagers survived or preserved the food. If I decide to exploit and generate too much milk, what can I do to avoid that? Well, you develop the cheese making machines or whatever. So I think that's how some of the mechanics came up. One of the initial mechanics that I liked a lot and that has remained in the game from the beginning, because as I said, when you develop a game for 3 years, there are many mechanics that you simply disregard by the end of the process. You no longer have them in the game. But this one about the secret objectives, that I liked a lot, and has always remained there from the beginning for the competitive game, where you put the tokens on top and all of that. So yeah, I think there's a collection of mechanics that are not typically seen on Eurogames, and I have a lot of fun seeing Eurogamers play with it, because you see them play in the first era, they all kind of almost die, and then they say, okay, now I got that this game is not like every other Eurogame. I have to rethink my strategy. So and you see them in era 2 kind of work their way around the mechanics. So it's fun. It's fun to see people play.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I take a rule book and I saw, okay, I can collect the resources, but what it wastes? How it possible? That was strange for start, but yeah, when I try to play, that was really great, because, like you said, normally everybody try to collect that much how they want, but in this game, no, you have to think what you really need, and then you try to collect them. And yeah, you have to keep in mind that if you take a lot of animals, they will go on.
Yes, sustainability.
Really impressed.
You played cooperative or competitive, or you played both?
Both.
All right. And which one did you felt you liked the most?
The most, the second thing, yeah, when
competitive.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah, and this is second thing that you make two variants of this game.
Yes. I always say that I have played many games that you have a cooperative, and suddenly you have like a little thing that makes it competitive. But you start playing competitive and you see this is not right. It's just not properly balanced. So I actually developed this competitive. That was the first decision that I made. And once it was completely, I wouldn't say perfect, but it was very solid as a competitive game, COVID came up. And COVID had a very positive impact, because suddenly we were all locked at home doing nothing else, and I couldn't release the game. So I thought, okay, let's test the game online. And when you play online, most of the games that people like to play online, well, not most, but I would say a large percentage are cooperative. So I started playing Tindaya online, and I kept on getting people saying, you know, this could really make a very good cooperative game. So I spent a whole year developing the cooperative game. And you're probably going to say, but if the rules are 80% the same, how did it take you so long? And it's all to do with testing. Because what I was trying to do is really to produce two different emotions while playing. You know, when you're playing a competitive, you need everybody to, to share this kind of urgency, and the urgency to win, the urgency to manage everything tightly, but also fight against the conquistadors, and maybe even become a traitor. So the experiences on a competitive game are totally different from the experiences of a cooperative game. And as I said, you know, that you can only obtain that if you test the game heavily, and you kind of work as a cooperative, develop it as a cooperative, work as a competitive, and develop it as a competitive. And each game will demand its own variations and themes and stuff like that. That's why, for example, the secret objectives work on a competitive, but they will never work on a cooperative, and so on and so on. So although the game is, the rules are 80% the same, that 20% difference is what really makes them like two separate games, like totally independent games. And some people that have not asked me before, how did you develop the game? They always say, oh, it's a cooperative. And the truth is that it wasn't. It was meant to be a competitive. It was just COVID that kind of forced me to rethink the game and make it also a cooperative. So So I think it's been overall producing the two different versions of the game a very interesting development process. So it's good. I'm very happy with that.
On chat is Jacek from Ogre Games. So hi, Jacek.
Hi.
Tell me, you said that you work on this game 3 years, but how long take the testing phase? And did you have a lot of good feedback because of that? Did you change a game because of testing phase?
Oh, yes, definitely. The development took about a year and a half, a year before I started showing the game at board game events like a fair, trade fairs, and stuff like that. But once you put the game to the test of the players, you simply are open to lots of variations. And most important, not just variations to the game, but also you learn that there are many, many different types of players. And with that many players, there is always very strange ways of playing. So you have to be observant of how they think and how they play. And suddenly, suddenly that forces you to change. I remember this little anecdote that has touched me from the beginning. When I showed the game in one of the fairs, there was a table of 4 people. At that time, it was purely competitive, and there was 3 of the players were 35, 38 years old, and there was a player which he was 14 years old. He was a child, and he was brilliant. He was working like perfect. He was better than the other 3 adults. And suddenly, when the game reached to the last action, one of the older players took all his tribes to a volcano and committed suicide and killed himself. And this guy, this poor child, he was almost winning, and he saw that. He was almost going to cry because he was saying, I have spent here 2 hours playing, and this man is killing everybody. So we used to ask them to fill out a questionnaire. And this child, he came back and he said, I love the games. I love the theme. I love everything except for this man who destroyed my experience. So that kind of stuck with me, and suddenly I realized that there are people who will actually bomb the game if they cannot win. And obviously we changed the game. We introduced lots of mechanics to avoid that thing from happening. But as you were saying, that only comes when you start testing the game. We tested the game, I would say now, for 2 years, pre and post COVID, and obviously with the tests comes new development and new fine tuning. We also did the cooperative because of the testing. So yeah, overall it's 3 years. I think the core of the game took about a year, but then you have all these other things. That's also, the game has over 120 cards, and with each tribe's power, you really need to balance it and ensure that it doesn't overpower somebody if playing against another person. So, and all the different missions and the traitor. The traitor is very difficult to test. So we've spent, I think we've done probably about 500 games just testing the Tindaya. So yeah, I think a game, if it needs, if you want the game to be solid and work well, you really need to put it through the test run of players and see what they have to contribute. You cannot be, as a designer, stubborn on your idea. You need to be open to let the other players enlighten you and improve what you've done. And there's always room for improvement. So I'm really happy for the whole thing. And I remember last October, we took the game to the Spiel, to Essen, the game fair in Germany. And we had played before with Americans online and with French people and Spanish people. But over there, we experienced people from all over Europe. And you can actually see how players from different countries will interpret the game, because there are for example, German people tend to be very precise, and in the game there's a section about a strategy, and they would spend like half an hour strategizing. Then it would become the perfect game. But it was like, to me, as a designer and seeing them play, it was interesting. Mediterranean people tend to, strategize for 2 minutes and then play and die. Germans tend to strategize for 30 minutes, play and win. But it's interesting as a designer to see that firsthand and see how people from different cultures enjoy the game and play. So
yeah, sometimes the best strategy is play without strategy.
Yes. I like that.
I like it too. Okay, we can back to the campaign, because during the campaign we saw 2 versions of Tindaya, Deluxe version and retail version. What is the difference between them?
Yeah, I think first of all, to me it's very, very important, and I did say that in the campaign with my colleagues, is that both games are exactly the same. Gameplay wise, they are the same. There isn't an additional card or additional tribe under the Deluxe edition. That doesn't work like that. That's not my campaign. As I said, it's taken me 3 years to balance the game properly, and taking away any of the elements would not be cool. It would just make the game be unbalanced. So both the editions of the game are exactly the same. Now, the Deluxe edition, what we've done is upgraded some components, which I think they benefit from the upgrade. For example, the minis and stuff like that. That makes gameplay a little bit more fun, if you want. But it doesn't change the game. The game is what it is. Also, for example, the personalized meeples, I think, give it a little flavor, and I liked the participation that people and the contributions that people did during the campaign. The tray, for example, to me was very, very important to have this tray to organize all the components, because this is a very heavy component-driven game. So yeah, it's helped my life, because now I can just simply lay everything out and it's very fast. But game-wise, they are the same. And I was very adamant about that. Yes, there are elements like the card separators or the card organizers or the double layer boards, which are desirable, but they don't change the game. In fact, I would say, so that everybody is aware, that this game, the retail edition, has 18 punch boards. That is a massive amount of board, and they are 2 millimeter thick boards. And the player boards in the retail edition, they are also 2 millimeters thick, and they have been treated with a laminated cover, so that even on the retail edition doesn't mean that it's going to be a cheap product. It's not. It's still good quality, and because that when I was designing the game and I was producing the game, I was always saying, this is the game I would buy if I could, and I don't want something cheap. I don't want something like in Terraforming Mars, where you have they are flip flop, cheap. This is not. I mean, it's expensive to produce and all of that, but I think players deserve to have a good quality product. And I think that's what we've done. The game is about 2.7 kilos in weight, so it's kind of heavy. It's got about 240 something wooden tokens and pieces and stuff like that. So it's you've played the game. It's lots of stuff.
Yeah, but a lot of players ask why in retail version we didn't have the 2 layers playboards.
Well, it's a good question. It's a very expensive product, the double layer boards. Production wise, they are very complex, because, and I didn't know this, because you do 2 parts, you glue them together, but then they have to stay glued with a press for 3 days. So the amount of labor, these are labor intensive components. So the amount of labor involved in doing these things would just simply make the whole thing very pricey. If it was only that, then it could be fine. But because there is on the game, as I said, 18 different punch boards with 2.8 kilos or 2.7 kilos of material, it just, you simply had to decide what do I need to take out? Because if not, I cannot sell it. I mean, this is not like Asmodee or any of these big companies that they're going to print 20, 30, 40, 50,000 copies. And this is not it. This is like, it's a small game, it's a small company, and we don't have the bargaining power that Asmodee has with their printers and so on and so on. So you have to give something out. And I thought, okay, if I cannot give double layer boards to the players, what is the best next thing? And as I was saying, the best next thing is these very thick player boards that are treated in such a way that stuff will not be moving around. So, which is, I think, a good solution.
Yeah.
And you'll see when you get if you get to see the final version, it looks cool.
Yeah, my version which I get from you looks really great. So yeah, I'm really impressed because of that.
All right.
Okay, we have small gift for our viewers, so we can make a little challenge. As you know, Tindaya is a game about volcano or mountain, how you want, and tell me where is this volcano and how high it is. The first person which one answer good on this question on chat will win T-shirt about Tindaya. So I think this is really great.
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer.
Okay, I know that you have a copy of Tindaya with you. Can you show it?
Yep.
Heavy.
This is the game as I have it now. We just got a couple of copies of some of the components from China today. Hopefully next week we will get the personalized meeples because our intention is to go straight into production so that people will get the games on their homes as soon as possible. We have, you've already seen some of the Deluxe components because they were on the demo version. So you know that most of the things work well, but there were a couple of things that came out as a result from the Game Found campaign. And this is the personalized tried meeples and a couple of other components like the multipliers and stuff like that. So we want to see them before they are produced. We don't want people to be getting something that we have not seen before. So my guess is that we will start. We'll jump into production probably in a week time when we get the pieces back from China. But the work is like way advanced, so we shouldn't be worrying too much about delivery. Hopefully, everything will be on time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I hope so because I think a lot of people are waiting for copies. So
yeah. I think when it's your first game and it's a new company, you have to do the utmost to ensure that that things are right. It's like the minis. We have already done them and ensure that they are fine and so on and so on. I just wanted to make sure that whatever we offered could be done, and it could be done in good condition. So yeah, you'll get it on time.
Great. That is great information. So when you expect that the first bakers will get their copy?
I would say before the end of the year. November, December. That would be my guess.
Oh, that will be a present. because of
Yes,
Christmas.
yes. Everybody wants that before Christmas. The good thing from what the manufacturer is telling me is that we have started producing before all other manufacturers for the games. And many manufacturers wait till May to start producing for December. But as we are starting now in March, our games will be produced before everybody else. I think the only complex element or the element that's going to take longer are the deluxe minis. But anyhow, they are starting producing that right away, so there shouldn't be a problem there.
So minis will be inside in the box, or you will send them in the
No.
box?
What we are doing is that because the minis were going to take longer, we designed the molds for the minis months ago in December. So the mold is ready, and they are just waiting for final figures for the production of the minis. And we are waiting, finalizing everything. But as soon as we finalize everything, we will start producing the minis as well. It's done like two different processes. On one side, you do the minis, and then on the other side, you do all the paper and wooden components.
Okay.
So it will be ready. And yes, on the deluxe edition, it goes inside the box. Like you saw on the video, it's already prepared so that it goes there in the box.
Of course, if you have any question to my guest, you can ask on chat, and I will try to ask later, of course. Mm-hmm. So feel free to make a question. Okay, right now we know that Polish version will make Ogre Games. So my question is, do you have any offer from another Polish publisher?
We had a couple of offers from different Polish companies who we were in conversation with. But ultimately, I think when we started chatting with the team at Ogre Games, I felt like an immediate connection, because these companies also coming up is new company. It's like us. We are also a new company, and I feel that they are going to be doing their best, and they're going to treat this baby like it was their baby. And I think that's very important for a new company. One of the big problems when you sell your soul to a big company is that the game is going to end up in the catalog, but then nobody's going to do anything with it. So, and that's why most of my partners worldwide are smaller companies who will nurture the game, who will make sure that game is reaching out, which at the end of the day is what you want. You don't want the game to be sitting in a warehouse and accumulating dust. You want the game to be played and to reach to as many people and gamers as possible. So, and I think Ogre is going to do that. Also, one thing that I don't know if they are on the chat, but if they are, they can confirm. One of the things I liked about the Ogre is that they are also very much like myself, very much worried about quality. That's kind of one of my things. I want to make sure that everything is perfect. I'm very meticulous about this thing. And speaking with the Ogre team, I found out that they were as meticulous as me. So that is like a perfect match. When your expectations and your ambitions are the same as your partners, and I think that's really great. So I'm very happy that Ogre liked the game, that they played it, and that they decided to support me on this journey. And I think that's kind of the best thing one can hope for, to have the right partners.
I think Jacek will be proud when he will hear that. Okay, so tell me, did you think already about something new? Because for sure, Tindaya, it will be not your last game. I hope so.
No, I'm planning on doing something else. Not Tindaya related, another thing. But with Tindaya, I learned a couple of things, and one of the things I learned is that that I want a game to be innovative. I don't like to. When you start designing a game, you take from all the games that are around that you like, and you kind of see, oh, I like that mechanism on Scythe, and I like that mechanism on Barras, and I like that thing. And many people are just tempted of gathering things and mixing them up, and that's a new game. I don't want that. I want to be able to learn from other great designers, but I want to create, and creating, it's something that takes time. So that's why creating Tindaya has taken me so long, like as I said, 3 years. I hope the next game won't take me that long, but one of the things that I learned is that it's a lot of fun when you do that, when you try to take mechanics and twist them and make sure that they meet your game. So that's something that I'm going to be doing, like ensure that the theme is there and that the theme helps the development of the game. So yeah, at the moment I'm kind of working on beginning on two projects, on two little games ideas, and I will try them and test them, and one of the ideas now I have a very initial mechanic that I like, but now I have to find a theme that works with that idea, and I start and letting that idea redefine the game, because as I said, that's how it worked with Tindaya, and I think that's what I enjoy, letting the theme that drive the development, and hopefully that's gonna create something new. So that's kind of my idea. I have two ideas now, and hopefully they will develop into something in the future.
But what kinds of ideas? What kind of game it will be?
Then if I tell you, I would have to kill you.
You can try me.
And well, I have an idea. I like the games where you have to deal with time. For example, you take Tolkien. Tolkien is from from Cranio Creations. They did something which I liked a lot, and that was the idea that you had all these wheels that basically are a measure of time, and you had to plan with time in your mind. It wasn't about immediate reward. It was like planning 5 or 6 or 7 rounds ahead, and I like that idea. I think it worked very nicely in Tolkien, and I want to explore the idea of time in my next game.
Okay, sounds good. Tell me if it is any designer from which one you take inspiration, or
I say that I don't fix myself on a particular designer. I do like, for example, as I was saying, Jamie Stonemeyer from Scythe. I like a couple of things about his games. Not everything, but I like a couple of things about his games. One thing that I liked about his games was, for example, in Viticulture, the wine developing game, you have a sense that the theme kind of helped the whole development. That's kind of one thing that I got, that it can be done. You can have a Euro game that is driven by theme. So that's kind of a thing that I got from Jamie. Another thing that I got from him was the movement, the C movement in Tindaya is similar to the C movement in Scythe. But then there is also a lot of barrage here, and a few, like Lorenzo and Magnifico. I think I like a little bit of the Italian new wave of game development. But I'm open to lots of input. So anything that's going to work, I'm going to take it there.
Okay, we have one question from the viewers. How many people were being involved in the game development?
I am a member of the of Ludo. Ludo is a Spanish board game association, and it's made up of designers. So we meet once every 2 or 3 weeks, and we all bring our games, and we talk about the different ideas and mechanics. And they have been a really nice indirect feedback, I would say, because the problem when you do the development with designers is that they have a very much designer mentality, and you really have to play and test the game with players' mentality, which is different. When you are a designer and you play a game, you just focus on the different mechanics and how the mechanics work, and if they are elegant and so on and so on, all this philosophy that is there. But when you play with a gamer, you want to have fun, and that sometimes has nothing to do with how elegant the mechanic is. It just you really play with the emotions that the game produce, and that you cannot test with designers. But as I said, look, when I was developing Tindaya, I had a group of very close gamers of my gaming club that tested the game with me for months before I took it out. So I would say about 15, 20 gamers and a gaming association helped me out shape a couple of, the whole dynamic of the game. And then obviously I have freelancers that help me out with the illustration, and obviously Javier, the illustrator of the game, he's really nice. He's from the south of Spain, Cordoba, and he's done lots of games like Thinner's Trail or Cooper Island, and it was also very interesting to work with him because he had the gamer's mentality. So you really have to illustrate the game to facilitate the game. It has to look nice, but it has to be functional, and I think that was also very nice input. So there was lots of people involved. I mean, if you look at the credits, I like to give credit to whoever worked on the project. There is a lot of people.
So tell me about the illustration. Somebody done it for you, or
no? Somebody done it for me.
Yeah.
Somebody's done the illustration for me. I had like pre-designed concepts that I kind of grabbed from internet, or I had a friend who is very nice at drawing things, and he did a couple of drawings so that I could get some feedback. One thing that when you are a designer, all other designers are going to tell you, don't waste any time doing your prototype. And I was saying, if I go to some people who have very little imagination, gamers, they want to see something nice, even if it's a prototype. So I did spend a lot of time trying to get a nice looking prototype. And once the game was locked, then once the game, I thought it was locked, I took it to an illustrator, and he did a wonderful job. It took him about 4 months to illustrate the whole game because it's lots of iconography. And when you are working with an illustrator, he will do something like, the symbol of production, which is the hand. And then you have to take that symbol and test it and see if it works, because sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes people don't understand that the hand means to produce, to do something with your hand. So every element that he did, we had to play test. So he would do lots of things during the week. We would print it out here, and then on the weekend we would play with those new elements to see if there was some understanding or there was some problems with it. I think when you have a game this heavy in iconography, I think it's got about 60 or 70 icons in the game, you really must put extra care on ensuring that all icons are understandable. I mean, yes, they are described in the rule book, but I wanted the icons to be self-explanatory, that you didn't have to always go to the rule book to see what they were. And that takes a long time. So that's why he spent about 4 months working on the thing. Let me just see if I have a nearby. I was looking for some of my prototype cards. If I knew you were, look, I've got here something. These are my prototype illustrations. For example, this is Moneba. Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
And this is Al-Quran. All right, and these were illustrated by a friend of mine. And the catastrophes are very much like the ones you have now. This is Wayota.
Yeah.
These are obviously the locust, very clear. But I think it helps when you're testing the game. I mean, it's a little bit crude, but this is the earthquake. It's not like the real final thing. But at least it gives players like a sense of what you want to do with the game. Where you want to take the players. So yeah, I like to do my prototypes very nice. So
tell me one thing, because in prototype we have standing. When you start thinking about minis?
I always started thinking about minis right from the beginning, but I didn't know this was my initial mini that I did as a standee. Okay, this is like it's a 3D printed mini, but obviously you have to have the art done, and I wanted to get the final prototypes ready as soon as possible because again, if you are Asmodee, you have 100 copies for promotion. But if you are Red Mojo, you have 10 copies for promotion. So I wanted the game to reach as many people as possible. So I started the promotion last year in June. So I have been sending my 10 boxes all over the world, and I couldn't have the minis ready on time for that. So I started doing the promotion, showing reviewers like yourself the game, and giving everybody enough time, because this is a heavy game.
True.
And so, yeah, it's kind of difficult. But yeah, I always wanted to do minis. But I didn't want the minis to be like a must. The game works fine without minis. If you have minis, that's great. If you don't have minis, that's also great. We have in here the volcanoes and stuff like that, and they are fine. They work perfectly well. Yeah. But once we finished the illustration, and once we started the promotion, we started working on the minis and try to find them to be on the right size so that they wouldn't become an obstacle. I think there's a game called I think it's Rising Sun or something like that. They have like this huge 50, amazingly beautiful minis, but if you put them on the board, you can't play. It's ridiculous. The minis need to serve a purpose to the game, and not the other way around. The game is not a purpose for the minis, at least not mine. Others are probably like that, but mine is the minis are there. For example, we have them in 2 different colors. We have them in reddish and bluish because they have a purpose. I mean, the color tells you the origin of the catastrophes and the god that affects that catastrophe. So we've worked on all those details to ensure that the minis are, are nice to look at, but they are not annoyingly big, and they play a purpose on the game. We did that. We started the design in September, and it was finished in October. They took a month to design, and then we sent them to China so that they would do the molds and everything. And I think the minis is something people don't know about. It's a lot of fun. How the whole design of a mini takes place. I don't know if you're gonna be able to show you, but many people say, okay, why does it take you so long to develop the minis and to produce the molds and all of that? And that's because it's a long process to develop the minis. The first thing they do, they take the files and they do what they call a wax mini. It's a mini that has lots of detail, but it's all white. But it's not done in plastic. It's kind of wax stuff. And they do this because they need to figure out exactly where to break the mini, because you cannot produce this on a single piece. You really need to break it up. So they do that, and then they say, okay, we can cut the mini here, and we need to cut also the arm, because if not, it will fall. So with the wax version, they are able to do to see if it works, and then from there they develop what they call the black minis. So then there is a black mini, which is now plastic, manufactured with plastic. Basically what they are doing with that black mini is test that all these different parts work together and they are joined together, and you can glue them and all of that. But also they look for imperfections, because now that's kind of, you're testing the mold that is going to do the mass production. And moving from a wax mini to a plastic mini, it's interesting. For example, they are not the same size. And I was kind of surprised, why are they not the same size as well? When you produce the mold, everything shrinks. So it's like, I don't know, 10% shrink. Why is a 10% shrink? So anyhow, they send you this new set of black minis. You examine them with like a magnifying glass to see if there is any mistakes. And once you approve or you mark where the things that need to be improved, that is done manually. If there is something, there is a scratch or whatever, that needs to be done manually on the mold. And it's a painstaking process. That's why the molds for the minis take about 4 months, 5 months, just to get them right. So from the moment they got the files, which was before Essen, which was in early October, we did not get the minis till about a week before the game found campaign. So that's how long it takes. So that's why we didn't share with anybody, any reviewers, the minis until it was done. I guess if I am Asmodee, I could do, but I can't. So we are there. So it's an interesting process. You keep on learning when you do the game. You think the game is the only thing that matters, but then you move on to the design and the illustration, and the illustration is the only thing that matters, and then you move to the minis, and that's the only thing that matters. So everything is a step into the right direction, but it's a long way to go.
So that was a little harder that you think before?
Sorry?
That was a little harder that you think before you start develop the game?
Oh, yes. Developing the game is far more complex than anything I could have anticipated, because one of the things I experienced is that I did the game and I started showing the game to publishers and trying to get their feedback and see if they wanted to take the game on. And they could not envision the game. They were saying, you know, this is not a Euro game. This is not an Ameritrasher. This is not a minis game. This is not. So well, this isn't. It doesn't have to be anything. Is it fun to play or not? If it's fun to play, then it's something new. You know, and publishers don't want to deal with the risks involved. International publishers with the risks involved on bringing something out of on the market. And to my surprise, the publishers also have very little imagination. They want to see the final product. So I said, okay, look, if I can't get the game the way I wanted, then I must do it myself. And that suddenly became Red Mojo. I developed with my partner a publishing company to try to narrow down that gap between the design and the final product. So we've got the game ready, and now when the game is ready and you show it to publishers and they start seeing that, yeah, it is different, but it works, and it is nice now to have the support of all these nice publishing companies around the world. We've got companies in partners in Korea, in China, in Poland, France, Italy, Spain, Brazil. So it's good to be a company, because doing this thing on your own, it's a daunting task. There's so many things to do, and there's still a few months to go ahead. But overall, it's been an impressive learning experience for me. I used to work in publishing, but I would do just like one tiny thing in the publishing business. It was book publishing. But doing this, developing this game, designing this game, has been like a total master on many tasks, from design to illustration to production and every day I learn something new. So that's kind of great. And I'm just thinking, when you asked about the next game I was going to be developing, the good thing is that now all that learning process is being assimilated, so it should take less than 3 years. Hopefully.
I hope so. I wish you that.
Yeah.
Before you said that you try to test this game with another designers, and my question is, they said something, no, don't do that because this is weird or this is not good, and you say, okay, you have right, and we try to delete this from the game, or not?
As I was saying, designers focus very much on mechanics. If they see the mechanic and they understand the mechanic, and they like it or not like it. The feedback I got was always very positive, and they actually helped me improve some of the mechanics. But I had many designers that kind of, they were saying, I'll just test the game for 10 minutes. And they were very much focusing on these mechanics. Do I like this mechanic or not? But when you design Tindaya and you've played Tindaya has not one mechanic, but 10, 20 different mechanics. And the fun, it's a big quiz. And the fun of the game is not any given individual mechanic, but the combination of all those mechanics and the emotions that transmits to the players. That sense of urgency, that sense of danger. I always say that Tindaya is a survival adventure, and I wanted the players to feel that sense of danger from the beginning. I think I'm gonna die. From era one, you start thinking, oh, I've messed it up. I think I'm gonna die, and then you end up era two, and says, I don't know how I survived, but I think I'm gonna die next round. So that goes beyond one single mechanic, and that's when you need to move on to other players, and you need to move on to test the whole game. Don't test a mechanic or an isolated mechanic, because a mechanic is boring on its own. It's just when it's this big multi-layered design, that mechanic is a piece on all of it, and therefore if the whole thing doesn't work, then forget about the mechanic. It's pointless. And you need to move from the designers that have very much that thinking cap, and move it on to the real public of the game, which is players. Another thing that is very important is that when you test a game with designers, you must understand where these designers come from. Whether they are, for example, war gamers. A designer of war gamers have nothing to do with a designer of Eurogames or Ameritrash. So you really need to know what their interests are, because then you can value their input accordingly. In Spain, for example, I would say 80% of designers do filler games, games based, card games, very fast, very few rules and stuff like that. In Europe, they do more Euro games, and so when you test, you really have to balance. Test with the Spanish people, test with British people, German people, Polish people, everywhere, because that's going to give you that extra idea of this thing works, but he says he didn't work, but he only does card games and he doesn't like Euro games. So maybe I should take that with a little bit of salt, pinch of salt, and not get too worried about. But generally, when somebody tells you something that they don't like this, and you hear that message 3 times, that's kind of my rule. 3 times, if somebody says something, then that something must be rethought, because there's something wrong with it. If you get 3 people, random people from everywhere, then that's one of the things that needs tweaking.
Okay, next question from our viewers. When you prepare a game, did you try to research the market to find out what themes are currently popular?
No.
No, for sure.
No.
That was your idea from start, and you keep that way.
I'll tell you the truth. When I approached, when I did my initial design of the game, after a year of development and testing with families and friends, I took it to a publishing company here in Spain, a very big publishing company, and they came to me and said, "Look, you need to change the game. We like the mechanics, and we like what you do with the board." They were saying, "We like what you do with the board, mixing things up. And but you need to set it up in Hawaii. It's more fun. Hawaii is more popular, and there's lots of things going on in Hawaii as well. If you set it up in Hawaii, then they do have volcanoes, but I mean, this game is based on historical events. I mean, I don't know anything about Hawaii. I mean, I could research Hawaii, but why not the Canary Islands?" And they said, "Well, Canary Islands are not popular." I said, "Who cares? I mean, a game is a game, and you have to kind of work that out and see how it develops." And I think the good thing about the gaming community is that they are willing to test almost everything. If it's good, if it's fun to play, then they're bound to play. So I wouldn't set myself on a theme. I would, on a commercial theme. I would try to build something where I think the game will benefit from the theme, rather than be a slave of commercialism. If I wanted to be commercial, I wouldn't do Tindaya. I would do something far more simple with less components. And that's another thing. When I took the game to the publishers, they didn't, they said, "Give us a 2-line synopsis of the game, 2 lines, and then give us a whole list of components." because they were not concerned with the game, but the cost of producing the game. They wanted to know how many cubes I had, how many needles I had, how many punch boards I had. That was kind of their measure of success, or of whether the game should be done or not, because if it was going to be too expensive to produce it, they wouldn't produce it. So yeah, I think for example, if somebody said to me the maximum number of cards to be economical is 126. Don't go over 126, because if not, you would have to do 168 cards or whatever. That thing I could manage, but I don't think you should limit your creativity or your or the workflow based on a number of components and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure you didn't do that, because
no,
Tindaya has a lot of different components.
Yes, that's right. I like my little pigs and my goats and
yeah,
my
they look great.
yeah. Yeah.
When the campaigning was on, I saw funny message on one group, and somebody said, okay, this is next game on T, like a Teotihuacan, Solkin, and a lot of different game on T. And they said, okay, it will be that difficult like them, or it's next game from these designers. And yeah, they was surprised that it's something new and really, really interesting.
Well, I didn't read it, but my next design, I don't set up the difficulty. I don't have like an idea of how difficult I want the game to be. I want the game to be accessible, which is different from difficult. For example, as you know, in Tindaya, we've graded the game, so there is like low difficulty, mid difficulty, high difficulty. We've done also a learning campaign, because I think it's important to avoid annihilating players. You have to encourage players to take this next step, and that's why what we did with Tindaya, we made it from simple, a few rules, to very complex. And I think my next design also is going to have this sort of thing. It doesn't really have to be very complex, but what I want to do is ensure that anybody can start playing, even if it's a simple version of the game, and then progress to the full-blown complexity. Now, one thing I have to say that I read in a blog, and I thought it's not possible, and is the writing of the rulebook. When you start writing the rulebook, you no longer have the designer's mindset. The game is designed. Now you have to explain what the game is all about. And that is completely insane. It's so difficult to explain how things work. It's just, it's actually taken me, the whole project is taking me 3 years, but the rulebook is taking me 2 years. So it is insane. And sometimes what you have to do is, if it takes me 3 pages to explain this thing, maybe I should not have this thing on the game. And I read it before I designed, and I said, that's bullshit. That's not, how come you're going to remove rules from the game just to make it, and you do. Actually, you do. I've taken out things from the game which I loved, but they were so hard to explain. And I just took them out, and maybe for an expansion. I'll tell you a secret. The game. In the game, you have 7 villagers and 2 noblemen. Okay, and you can move the noblemen around the board. Now, these 2 noblemen initially had 2 different roles. One was the responsible of the religious aspect of the game, and the other one was responsible of the civil actions of the game, i.e. the war, the building of settlements, and so on and so on. And this was based on the culture of the Wanches, the original inhabitants on the land, because every tribe had a religious leader and a king. They would call it king, a nobleman. So I was trying to emulate this thing. And basically, the idea was that if you had to do an offering, you could not use the king to do the offering. You had to use the religious nobleman to do the religious meeple to do the offering. Or if you had to battle against the conquistadors, you had to use the king, not the religious guy. And I wrote the whole rule book with that rule in place. And it was insane. I kept on saying, if you're going to battle the conquistadors, you need to bring the king. But remember, not bring the religious man, but the king. And if you are going to do the offering, you have to bring this guy to this meeple, not the other one. I mean, we have different designs for each meeple, for the king and I think that this was like last year, probably about a year, 10 months ago, just before the prototypes were produced, like 3 weeks before the prototypes were to go into production, we said, let's take this thing out. I mean, I know it hurts me because I have been working on this emulating live aspect of it, like trying to do the game to follow this culture and their social structure. Let's just try to do that. And it was just too complex. I mean, the rule book was going on forever and ever. And every time I had to write this thing about using the right, it's like, boom, let's just simplify things. And as you start writing the rule book, you realize that a couple of things that you've set your mind up from the beginning are not really necessary, because you take them out and the game still works, and it works quite well, and it's a little simpler. I always said, if one day I get to do an expansion, I'd bring my religious nobleman back, but for now you have to take it out. So yeah, I think the game, writing the rule book, also shapes the game slightly, because you have to find you end up finding things that are not necessary, and you have them there because it was out of fun at the beginning. But the game has evolved, and therefore, as it evolves, you should take some things out. If not, you're going to have like a 65 pages rule book and nobody's going to play. So yeah.
I believe that was really hard to do with the rule book. You didn't start think why I don't design card games?
Yes, I have told myself that for the last 3 years. I think I always say my next game is gonna be like a bingo or something, like something very simple, A, B, Z. But then now I'm finished. I'm into production, and most likely we'll be finishing. We'll be setting the production up next week, and once that is happening, I'm gonna have like 2 or 3 months without that much work. I may have to do review the stuff they send me and stuff like that, but not massive sitting down and working. So I'm kind of restless. So I'm kind of thinking, what am I going to do next? I have to start developing things. I can't be idle all day. So I think you also have to design what you enjoy playing. That's something that is very important, because it's going to take you 3 years or 2 years or whatever. If you're very good, like Feld or Tashini or all these great designers, that they'll do it in 6 months. But it's going to take me 3 years to do this thing, so I might as well enjoy it. And if I couldn't do a party game, because I hate party games. I do admire I do admire them, when they are done, because they are very imaginative and they work well, but I don't enjoy playing them. So I kind of say, if I'm gonna have to work 3 years on a party game, I might as well kill myself now and not do anything. So yeah, you have to do what you like. So I've thought about doing a bingo, but I think I'll end up doing Tindaya 2 or something like that, something as deep and layered as Tindaya is.
So when we can expect an expansion to Tindaya?
I don't know.
Because you said something about expansion, so that's why it's my question.
Yeah, I know. One thing that I was explaining before, we had to take stuff out of the game because it was making the game more complicated, and it was introducing additional rules and so on and so on. So we took them out so that the game could be more accessible. I wouldn't say simple because the game is not simple. The game is deep, but we didn't want to make it so complex that I would never be able to see the game anywhere. But that also leaves lots of stuff in a cardboard box waiting to be rediscovered. And I think there is also ideas that I got from the museums when I was visiting the Canary Islands museums that I thought, this could be interesting to pursue in the future or whatever. So yeah, there's a couple of things that I have there that I believe could work well. Like, for example, the 5-player expansion is a possibility, which I need to test and test and test, because it's not as simple as put a 5th player and start playing. No, you need to balance the whole thing. And then there is also a couple of ideas that I liked. And new mechanisms that I think could be fun to introduce if you get tired of Tindaya. But we'll see how. I mean, at the moment, I rather do something fresh, something new, rather than rebuilding the game again. But I'm not totally against it. I love expansions. When you like a game, you really want to have everything that enhances the game further. It's like with Viticulture, you had Tuscany, and Tuscany just brought a totally new dimension to the game. Or when we have Lorenzo, and then I bought the expansion of Lorenzo, the Great Western Trail, and I liked it so much that I wanted to see how the new expansion would enrich the game. And I think if there's a lot of interest to this kind of idea of expanding the universe or expanding the culture a little further, there is always room to be there to do. But let's see. I want to do something else, and then maybe I'll revisit Tindaya in the future.
Okay, so last question: what is your second favorite game? Because I think the first favorite game is Tindaya. So what is the second?
It's so difficult. You ask very difficult questions. As I was saying before, I love I'm not going to give you one. I'm going to give you a couple. Okay.
Okay.
I love Tolkien. I think it's just wonderful the way they deal with time. It never surprises me, and I always lose. I always lose at Tolkien. So that's kind of, when I lose at a game, it's just that's I have to play and play and play and see if I can get better. So that's a game I like a lot. One of also my favorite games from the last few years to now is obviously Great Western Trail, which I love. I think is simple, is repetitive, but somehow it just makes every game interesting, and it plays with players' emotions. You want to be the last one to deliver the cows to the market because and you do anything to get there, even kill your players that are playing with you. So there's something about that game that I like, and obviously Cooper Island. That's particularly interesting for me because obviously I met illustrator Javier Ingolen through Cooper Island. We played lots of times, and it's probably a little bit more complex than play-wise. Not mechanics, because mechanics are not that difficult, but to play well, there's lots of things going on. And again, Cooper Island is a game that I always lose. So it's a losing game. If you lose, then it's good for me, you know, because it
Cooper Island is
encourages
a
you.
game which one frustrates me a little because for start you can get a not big amount of points there.
Yes, I know. That is like in Tindaya, and one of the things that also Cooper Island has, like Tindaya, is this maintenance phase where you have like 6 or 7 steps that you have to do online. So yeah, there's lots of games, and I think the good thing about these hobbies is that there are so many new games coming out every year. I wish I could play them all, and I have at home, like I have become a little bit of a collector because I buy lots of things that I think could be interesting to play, but I don't have the time. So I have about 10 or 15 games which I still need to. I have opened them. I have unpunched all the punch boards because that's fun. That's a lot of fun. You know, buy a new game, unpunch all the boards and pack them in little plastic zips. But I haven't played. So I have a couple of games to explore.
Yeah, same I have one special place where I have a lot of games which I have to play, but I haven't time to do that.
Yes, but it's good to have them there because you know, if you're bored one day, you see, oh, I have all those things that I can explore. Let's have a look and read the rule book and see if I can grasp it and get some people to play at home and so on and so on. So it's kind of the hobby itself. It's with the variety of games and it's always interesting to explore new things.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. It's been a real pleasure. I know I speak too much, you know. The problem with the live...
That's your role here.
The problem with the live programs is that you cannot edit. So I had a program a few months ago, and the good thing is that they kind of cut me down, and you know, it makes it like a very concise speech. But I have a problem with that. I speak too much. So anyhow, it was a lot of fun chatting with you, and hope we can meet next year in Essen or anywhere. Okay.
For sure, I will be on Essen this year. Last year I was too, but I didn't saw you there. That was a lot of different
yes.
publishers, and yeah, that was difficult to find somebody there.
So we have a coffee break next year in Essen.
Yeah, we will be in touch next year. All or right. This year.
This year.
October. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.